Let's talk about some of your other influences here. Paul Rodriguez, that was an influence on you as well?
Paul was an influence of Robin Williams, Eddie Murphy, and Bill Cosby before he became an issue.
Yeah.
And I feel like even now bringing his name up like that is still a thing, because I mean, I give credit to his craft, not his.
We all grew up with him,
not his personal life.
No, I agree.
Unfortunately,
with that.
but.
So let's talk about you selling cell phones and losing cars and getting thrown out of apartments. What was that like?
Oh, man. Yeah. So let me take you back. Let's see. The year was 1997 when I first started doing stand-up. And that same year, I still had my day job. My day job was working for a company called LA Cellular. And they eventually got bought out by AT&T. And in the beginning, it was only 2 cell phone companies in Los Angeles. It was either LA Cellular or AirTouch, which became, one of those companies, I think Nextel, because eventually
they all got bought up.
Yeah, it went from 2 companies, and then it turned into like 8, and now I think it's down to 3 or something like that, or 4. So I sold cell phones, and when I say I sold cell phones, it wasn't like the phones of now where anybody can get a phone at any time. I mean, you can go to 7-Eleven and buy a burner phone, a disposable phone, for all the drug dealers out there. Big shout out. Anyway.
It's a huge audience for us, so thank you.
Yeah, when I was selling cell phones, it was 2 phones that I had. It was a Motorola PC 550 flip phone, which was like a brick, literally like a brick phone. It was the size of a brick.
I had it.
When you'd charge the phone, I remember I had 2 kinds of batteries. I had a regular NiCad battery and then nickel metal hydride. So basically, when you would charge your phone, you only needed to charge it like once a week.
Yeah.
Because the phone would just last. You didn't
but
have to
it weighed
worry.
5 pounds.
It was heavy.
Yeah.
Like if you drop an iPhone right now, you'll shatter your screen.
Yeah.
That's $150. Back then, you could use that phone if you were getting mugged, you could hit someone with the phone and not even lose signal. You could be like, honey, hold on. And then bam, and then keep talking on the phone. But those phones were intense. Like you'd talk on it and you could feel the tumor growing.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
It was like wearing a microwave on your head, So you'd hang up and you're dizzy and you're like, oh my God, why do I feel like that? But those were good times. People had to pass a serious background check.
Oh, yeah.
There was big deposits that were made on that phone.
How much were those? I'm trying to remember. They were expensive.
Depending on the credit, first of all, the deposits were either, I want to say it was like 200, 500, or 1,000, depending on how messed up your credit was. And then the phone itself, depending on your credit, they would sell you the phone. It was like, we'll sell you the phone for a penny. Kind of a thing.
Yes.
It was that era that, a penny, you can get a phone for a penny or you can get 12 albums. Remember that? They'd send you the thing in the mail. You get 12 albums for a penny. It was the penny times. And so if your credit was good, you get the phone for a penny. And if not, you had to buy the phone. There were certain price tiers for the phone. And if you had to buy the phone flat out, I think it was like $1,100 at the time.
And the monthly bills were damn expensive.
They were stupid. And then, of course, people would always say, oh, well, I just need a phone for emergencies.
Yeah.
Just to keep it in the car for emergencies. And, of course, they had the little plans where it's like 25 minutes a month.
Yep.
And then free nights and weekends, which was not free nights and weekends. It was like 250 minutes of actual talk time. And then they'd start charging you accordingly.
Right.
The peak hours versus off-peak.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah. And
I always went over.
Yeah. And so the beauty of working for the cell phone company at the time and working in sales is that you got a free cell phone. And my cell phone was unlimited.
Oh, my.
And my roommate at the time, he also worked for LA Cellular. And so we both had cell phones in the house with unlimited time.
Oh, my God.
So we'd have friends come over the house and they'd start making phone calls and we'd charge them. We'd use that for to get McDonald's or whatever.
Kidding.
Oh, yeah. Hey, go for it. It's free. And then we'd have contests to see who could talk the most on the phone because at the end of the month, they'd send you an envelope with your minutes.
That.
Even though there was no charge, they would still
and they would list
show
every
call you made.
Yes, I remember that.
And how long. And eventually the envelope turned into like a manila folder.
Yeah, it became like a telephone book.
Yes.
Oh, my God, I forgot about all that stuff. That's crazy.
Those were good times. The job, having an unlimited cell phone was worth it alone to keep that job.
And how much were you making a week?
I was making stupid money.
Were you really?
Yes, because I was working on commission.
Oh.
And so I want to say on average I was doing about $5,000 a month.
Oh, my.
Which in 1997...
You were doing good.
Yes, I was doing very, very well. I remember I had just got a car. I remember the big bragging thing was that I was paying for cable. Everybody in my apartment building was stealing it. I was the only one paying for it. And I was like, yeah, that's right.
Back when it was like $19 a month.
But I'm like, I got all the channels and I'm paying for it. And they're like, you're stupid, whatever, I can do it. When they have the raid, I'm the only one who's still going to have TV. but everything was going great. I remember I had just bought a big, beautiful leather jacket from Wilson's House of Suede.
Oh, I remember that place.
Yeah, you'd walk by and you smell the
You'd
leather.
smell the leather, yeah.
So
Wilson's House of Suede.
I still have the jacket.
Do you really?
Yeah, and
they were in malls, I remember. And I'm trying to remember, there was one in Beverly Hills, and my wife bought me one before we were married, and I thought I had died and gone to heaven because I couldn't afford to buy a leather jacket like that, man. They lasted forever.
Yes, literally, because
Yeah.
I still have it.
Do you really?
I had it reconditioned, but it's still a great jacket.
Oh, my. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So I had read, and tell me if this is true or not, that you had gone through a bad period even when you were working. You had a car, and the car was...
So anyways, once, so I had the job then. And then in 1997, I remember that's when I started doing stand-up. And I did my first television appearance in December of that year on Comedy Central. The show was called Make Me Laugh. And it was an old show that was from back in the day, and they rebooted it.
Yeah, I'm from back in the day when that thing was big. Bobby Van was the host.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So you were on it?
Well,
back then?
I didn't. I never did it. But all my friends, I used to open for Howie Mandel. Howie was on the show like all the time, and all those guys. And it used to run like 11 o'clock at night on KTLA in LA. So I didn't know they brought it back.
I did the show, and then they said the producers really like you. They want to know if you want to do another one. I'm like, sure. And they're like, they got room for one more if you want to do one more. And so I did 3 episodes.
Oh, my.
And I got 3 checks from Comedy Central. That was more money than I had seen. And like, wow, I was blown away.
Really?
And I says, you know what? If I can, in my weird mind, I'm like, if I could just keep this up, I don't need to work, like have a regular 9 to 5. And
Right.
so that inspired me to want to kind of like, well, let's see what we can do. And then I got an audition to do a television show that was basically gonna be like a version. It eventually turned into Mad TV.
Okay.
And so it was a sketch show, and they knew that I did the thing with Nickelodeon, and so they're like, we really like you, blah, blah, blah. And, I was very much like, I didn't know how the business was. I just heard, we really like you, you'd be great for this thing. And in my mind, I'm like, I got this. I don't need to work. I'm out. And so I remember I went to work, and I'm like, I still have the paper somewhere at home where it says, this is my official 2 weeks notice, blah, blah, blah. I just got a TV show, blah, 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 blah. And I faxed in remember the fax?
Remember the fax?
I faxed in my resignation and turned in my phone, and I was just like waiting for that call from the higher ups, and it never came.
Never happened.
And so once that happened, then reality sunk in, and I did have the opportunity to go back and get my job, but I didn't want to do it. Once I quit, I'm like,
I'm done.
I'm gonna make this work.
So what'd you do?
I went through all my money so fast. You would have thought that I had saved up, and I thought I did, and the money just flew. It just flew.
That's what happens. When you're not working, you go through it like crazy.
Mm-hmm. And so eventually, the pink notice showed up on the door. Eviction. My roommate was like, dude, go back and get your job. And I'm like, no, man, I'm not. I'm going to make this work. And he's like, God damn it. So we both got evicted. And and then the repo guy was looking for the car. And then my buddy Ruben, he and I, we traded cars. So I was driving around his Blazer, and he was driving around my Oldsmobile Regency 98.
Oh, I had an old Cutlass 88.
Oh, yeah, that was like the same.
Yeah, you got 6 blocks to the gallon.
Thank you. So it was a heavy car. It was a boat. And so, the repo guy never got the car because I never listed my friend Ruben on the paperwork.
Oh, my.
And eventually I wound up living at my brother's. And my brother had me sleeping on his balcony for about 3 months. That's a whole nother story. And then my sister found out I was sleeping outside. And so then she took me in, and then I rode her couch for about a year. And then I landed the job with Nickelodeon. And
so Nick was a first turning point.
Yes.
Okay, so they were paying you over there. And then what was the next big gig after that?
Well, after Nickelodeon, I started working the road. I was on the road, and just that kept getting better and better and better. And back in the day too, it meant a lot when you would follow up with a phone call. You call up the comedy club, you talk to the manager, talk to the booking agent, and hey, how did it go last time? If there's anything I can do, I'll fly myself out. I'll take a bus, whatever you need. And just having these conversations and following up with people. That's how you did it back then.
So how many years were you doing those clubs?
About 10.
See, you got to put in your time. It's interesting. I'm not name dropping here today. It seems like I am, but I'm not. I had lunch with Rosie O'Donnell. We've known each other forever. I was doing the warm-ups on Star Search when she was on. We used to do Win, Lose, or Draw together. And she said her daughter, who's about 14 years old, came to her and said, I'm going to do stand-up. And Rosie said, are you willing to put in 15 years? And she said, what do you mean? She says, that's how long it's going to take before you get to where you want to go. So unless you're willing to put in that time, forget about it. And you were willing to put in that time.
Oh, there was not only that, but it was my passion. It was my love. It's like,
there you go.
It didn't seem like work because I was enjoying what I did. The work was having to keep a calendar, keep a book, journal, make phone calls, follow up. You didn't have your phone to be able to just send someone an Instagram message. You couldn't send someone a tweet or a text. That wasn't an option.
Didn't exist.
You had to pick up a phone. You had to talk to somebody.
Yep.
You had to remember a number. You had to memorize phone numbers.
Yeah, I still have those, but it's funny. Most people don't know any numbers anymore because they just push a button. But that was such a different time. But you said the key word there, passion. You had a passion for this thing. I always say, I'm 71 years old. I always say I've never worked a day in my life, okay? Because everything I did, I love doing, okay? I mean, to get up every day and go entertain people, whether, people always pigeonhole me into the Nickelodeon thing. I was at Food Network for 20 years, and amongst other things, I hosted 25 different programs. But the point is, I got up every morning and I went and played TV. And to me, there was no better gig in the world. Now, I put in my time doing clubs and realized that I was not funny, okay? And so the realization that you have to come to that I was just an okay comic, but as I was watching the Daves and the Robins and the Jays, I thought, well, I'm never going to be that funny. I started to do warm-ups on television shows, and that was kind of a hosting gig, basically. You were out there for 2 or 3 hours trying to entertain the audience between scenes on a sitcom, and that's where I got my legs. I didn't do the comedy clubs, but I did warm-ups for Webster and Star Search and What's Happening Now and Alice, and I just did all those shows, and that's where I figured out how to become a host. And so I always say that, when I got the audition for Double Dare, I was 33 years old. If I would have gotten that audition when I first moved out and I was 21 or 22, I couldn't have gotten that job because I didn't have the experience and the know-how. But after putting in all that time, when I finally got the right opportunity, all that work paid off. And that's what you're explaining to me here. You put in 10 years working shitty comedy clubs across the country.
I got a chance to do a little bit of warm up, and let me tell you, doing warm ups was super hard.
Oh, it's hard, man.
It's hard. It's like comedy boot camp because it's like you when you're doing stand up, there is a rhythm. You get into a rhythm, and the amount of time that you're up there for, you try to get a nice flow going for that time. Whether it's a 10-minute set, half hour or an hour, you got to get into a rhythm. And when you're doing warm ups, you're at the mercy of the director who just all right, we're back.
Yep.
And then
you're in the middle of something.
You're in the middle of a bit. You're in the middle of something, and you just get cut off, and they don't care.
No.
You're just an afterthought. You're there to just pass the time while the show's being done, and you're just like, ugh.
Yeah.
And so for me, that killed me. Every single time I do it, I'm like, oh, but it pays so good.
It paid well.
It was like, it pays so good. And so I did a couple of game shows for Comedy Central, and then they called me to do warm-ups in Spanish, and
oh my.
I lied because at the time, when they said, do you speak Spanish? I'm like, well, I can order food. But I wasn't ordering food on the show. I had to basically try to give instructions, and my Spanish was so horrible, and they caught on really quick. And so I only worked for about a week.
And then they got you out of there.
And then they got me out of there, yeah.
Yeah,
But
I remember doing a pilot for B. Arthur after Golden Girls was off.
wow.
And I was doing better than the show. And exec producer came over and said, come here. I said, yes, B has a request. I said, what's that? Please don't talk anymore. No more warm-up. We'll pay you. Just sit down over there. But she doesn't want you talking anymore because
You were getting better reactions.
I'm getting more laughs than she was. And so there were those stories, where you had to deal with personalities. I worked on a show called Soap. And
I remember Soap.
So Billy Crystal was there. Jay Johnson was there. John Biner was there. So when I would get in the toilet at 1 o'clock in the morning when the people had been sitting there for 4 hours, Billy would do his Muhammad Ali for me, or John Biner would do impressions that he used to do on the Ed Sullivan Show, or Jay Johnson would. And so I had crutches, but on every show that you work on, that is not the case. And, half the time you're out there showing pictures of your kids from your wallet, anything to keep them entertained. And people don't understand how difficult that job is. So you lived it.
Yeah, no, and there's some warm-ups out there that are like Hall of Fame status. Like, Ron Pearson is one of my favorites. Every time I had a sitcom, he was always the one that did the warm-ups. He'd do stand-up, he would juggle, he would do both at the same time. He'd wind up on the floor, he'd balance a ladder on his face, and you're like, yeah, he's setting the bar. Come on, people, we got to get our acts together and beat the warm-up.
I started on the Mac Davis show, and we'd start at like 7 at night and go till 2 in the morning, and I got paid $300. And now the warm-up guys make like $5,000 a night. It's
Yes.
insane the amount of money that they pay these people to do it. And, now they order in pizzas and they throw candy and they do all this stuff. I had no budget for all that kind of stuff. It was just all Marc Summers all the time, and it didn't necessarily work all the time. It's rough.
Yeah, if you had a granola bar in your pocket, you're like, hey, here, just
Oh, you
stop,
happy to
stop
see me?
screaming. Stop screaming. Here, take this.